All right, welcome back, everybody. I am here with Eric Garchow. We are back with the Star Wars Collector Spotlight series. Thanks so much for tuning in, Eric. Great to have you this morning. Just so we can kind of set the tone here for those who don't really know you that well, where do you hail from and what do you primarily collect?
Sure. So I grew up in Michigan, but I live in Nebraska now. I teach German out here, high school German. And my two main Star Wars collecting games are Star Wars CCG, and I also do a lot of Star Wars miniatures from Wizards of the Coast.
Okay. And then, so the non-Star Wars collections, do you have anything like that? Do you collect?
Oh yeah, I do get pretty into vintage baseball. I have not like I collect sets for that, but I have a couple of favorite players like Hoyt Wilhelm, the knuckleballer. If you're really into baseball, that's I'm trying to collect all his cards because I had a pretty bad knuckleball in high school, so I want to collect his cards.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting sometimes hearing about like people that did sports cards and then got into like non-sports cards, or if like some people just kind of kept it that way. But do you feel like sports cards are still as bigger, or smaller than where it was when these kind of came out?
That's a good question. From what I understand, they've kept value pretty well, and it's not like Star Wars CCG where I feel like a lot of the interest came from guys getting to be in their 30s and then they have some more disposable income and they can spend more on it. I mean, even today, those vintage cards where a lot of the guys that were collecting them aren't really into collecting anymore, those still keep a lot of value. So I think sports is holding pretty well. I think there was in the 80s. I mean, you can't give stuff away from the 80s, but they started to short print things a bit more, and yeah, it's kind of more fun to collect. You get some cool autograph cards and some like bits of bat or uniforms. They did some cool things with that.
Yeah, it's weird to me. I mean, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole with it, but there's some cards like that are, like you said, like 80s, early 90s, like you can't give that stuff away.
Mm-hmm.
And then other stuff, it's like suddenly worth a fortune. It's like,
yeah,
that just like blows my mind. I can't really follow with it. So how did your collecting journey begin with, mostly primarily Star Wars CCG, I suppose, but with any of the Star Wars collectors, how did that start?
Right. Well, it was, I think the summer after second grade, I went to summer camp, and one of the counselors there, he had big Star Wars card collection. So we were just playing on the floor of our cabins there. And after that, it seems like from when I was probably about 9 when I started. And from when I was 9 to 13, I don't think I spent money on anything but Star Wars CCG. So that was definitely, yeah, elementary school, middle school. That's about all I spent any money I came across on. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, which is funny because like I don't remember ever having enough money to buy.
Absolutely.
Like Star Wars high, you're like, great, I could buy like 2 or 3 packs at the mall or something, and it was like, that's it. But I'd love to buy that box. That just seemed like so far off. I mean, now with the disposable income, we forget like we had to kind of pick and choose of like what we could get.
Absolutely.
Back in the day.
Yeah.
You're like, hey, I got $20 in my pocket. That's like a lot.
Yeah.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, how emotionally invested are you into your collection?
It sometimes depends on the card. I mean, I do have a full, I guess what I would say, an English master set. So I have like the tournament foils and stuff. And I came into the valuable tournament foils pretty late, probably 2015. I got my last tournament foil. I actually got the Corellian Corvette second. But, a lot of those episode 1 cards, I was really big. My first booster box ever was Tatooine. So I would say, yeah, like the binders I have just across the room here with the complete initial sets, those would be tough for me to ever give up. But a lot of those more collector niche cards, it's nice to have them. It's nice to have a set, but it's not the biggest thing in the world to me.
So I'm sure everybody and their cousin is wondering. I mean, you've definitely showed off, some really not even humble brag stuff of like your Reflections binder of like 9 of everything.
Oh yeah.
You've showed off some pretty big flexes in here. I guess when I see some of these videos, because I collect different things as well. Like, Star Wars CCG has always been kind of an on-off relationship for me over the last like 20 years.
Okay.
But I too also finished my collection, maybe a little later. It was 2017 or something.
Okay.
But I had spent a lot of money, resource, and time going through like retro video game collecting, as well as currency, which probably has spent way more on. But I think of like, if I wasn't spending on that stuff, would I have been spending it even deeper on Star Wars CCG? I think when I see some of these videos, I think of like, well, I probably would have been like an Eric Garchow and just had like an ultimate flex of, some bigger binders, like, master sets of more stuff. But I want to know, like, how big is the Garchow vault of Star Wars card? Because you've been selling this stuff, you've been ripping this stuff for years. I know I've been watching this stuff. Everybody else has. It's just kind of like a wonder of like, okay, how big is this vault go? Because I mean,
Okay.
I had discussions recently where we're like, we can't be ripping this stuff forever. There is,
Right. Yeah.
there is a time limit to this, and we can only do this for so long.
So,
Where,
yeah, in terms of, I guess I have, well, it's kind of hard to say because I do have a player's collection of sorts where I have, extra LSJKs and stuff, or Luke Skywalker Jedi Knights and Emperor Palpatines. But, a lot of that's also kind of in my store stock, and I don't really play it either. So, I mean, I have enough to build all the decks I need. But for single cards, I basically keep a master set. Almost everything else is store stock. And in terms of sealed, which I got most of that right behind me, I mean, I still got quite a few booster boxes left. I have 2.5 Reflections 3 boxes, and I still got a bunch of Reflections 1 boxes because I was buying those back when they were $90, and now they're 10 times that.
right.
And yeah, so I think sealed I definitely have a lot more of in terms of, relative to a one of everything set. I have lots of sealed, and yeah, the singles I don't keep too much of those for myself, I suppose. Just try to sell them.
So your relationship with sealed is more like, okay, I have some of these. I got a great deal on them a long time ago. They're still in demand. I'm happy to open the boxes and sell the packs for those who
Right.
want to.
Yeah, that's the main idea. Yeah, I'm still buying boxes. Definitely a lot more expensive than they were. I remember I got a master set of boxes that was all 19 sets, and I want to say this was 2016, and I spent like
Wow.
3,500. So that's like the price of Reflections 1
Oh
box
my
today. Yeah, that was the time to do it. And then,
Oh
but
my God.
yeah, now when I run out of a set, I do kind of, I'm not making too much off the booster boxes anymore. Back when I bought those, it was quite a nice deal.
So where's the line draw? I mean, what happens when you're down to the last boxes? Suddenly it's hard to find them anymore. I mean,
I don't know when I'm going to stop with that. And, part of it is I don't envision myself doing this the rest of my life. It's fun now, but, that is a good question. I think one thing that, at least when I'm trying to buy boxes now, especially if it's like sets like Jabba's Palace, I'm just trying to have those in stock. I mean, I guess you call it a loss leader. Maybe I, lose 10 cents per booster when I sell them on eBay and they take the fees compared to what I bought
Oh
the
my God,
booster
yeah,
for.
don't even get me started on the eBay fees.
Yeah. So, but other stuff, I think, I mean, actually a lot of it does raise money for that summer camp that I went to. It's a small percentage of my sales go to that 5 to 10%. But that's kind of how I started the store. And in terms of when I'm done with all this, maybe someday I'll sell booster boxes that I have left over. But yeah, it just kind of depends on how I feel about it at the time, and if I want to keep selling single booster packs or just kind of dump it all at once.
Yeah, I mean, I think the best bet of where we can do that kind of stuff is transacting through the groups, the Facebook groups.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're not going to, there's plenty of people that'll just directly buy, and there's such a good community over there.
Right.
I think there's a there's a renewed sense of the sealed product with all the, graded fans that want to rip stuff open and get really, really high, fresh quality cards. Whereas like 5, 6, 7 years ago, the difference between near mint and mint for me was, like I didn't really care. I just wanted a nice copy for my master sets or
exactly. Yeah.
Set, like it's going to go in a binder. But now it's like, oh, well, now every little mark is going to matter. It could be a difference between a 7 or a 10, and even still, like, it goes off the deep end with that. And it doesn't sound like that's something you really care about, but you are kind of in a position to, capitalize on the amount of sealed product you have, to kind of fill that void for some people who are like, oh, shoot, I don't have that much sealed product. Maybe there's a renewed sense with that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I guess I never really thought my me selling sealed product was was so much about cracking them to get graded cards. It was more, I think it's pretty cool when people want to buy one of each pack and like put them in a frame, or buy one of each pack and get a couple buddies together, that they haven't seen in a while, and open those all together. That's kind of more how I saw the sealed. But now that you bring it up, yeah, I guess I'm sure some people buy it just to hit the gold mine and get that gem mint card. But yeah, like you say, I'm not super into grading in terms of when I sell singles on my store. I'm really just looking for, I guess I call my minimum grade for my normal listings is SP near mint. So I'm looking for the stuff that I would like in a binder. It looks good in a binder, easily playable in a deck. And yeah, I don't have grading in mind too much. In fact, lots of times people ask me, do you have any really good cards in really good condition? I say, I'm probably not the guy to ask for that, because I want to sell stuff to people who want cards for their decks and cards that look nice in a binder. I don't want you to be flipping through and see a Dagobah Lieutenant Suba that's just looks like it's been run over by sandpaper. Like that's nobody wants that in their binder. But yeah, if there's a couple scratches on it that you can't really see unless you take it out, that's still within that SP near mint grade.
So with GEMP, and a lot of people have been playing more online, there's been a lot of talk, are actual cards obsolete? Because now play, they do a lot of tournaments online, like everything's online, and the amount of people that live near each other that can play with each other is rather limited for most people. I mean, not everybody. Of course, there's the cliques in the cities where you can connect with a few buddies, but for the most part, I mean, especially if someone's coming new into the game, they're more likely to be able to play on GEMP, and they'd probably learn that way, and they'd get more games in and not have to have the cards for. So what is your opinion on where the game is evolving, and are the cards going obsolete? Are they just going to become kind of a museum piece ultimately, or is there still a big enough demand to play in person?
I think that's a good question in terms of, well, first of all, I mean, there's a lot of guys who have reached out to me to sell their collections because they don't really play with the physical cards anymore, and they do play on GEMP or GEMP. So that's where I've gotten a lot of my collections from, is guys who don't want them anymore. I tend to think that by the time the amount of cards we have in circulation is so low that we can't really play physically anymore, I mean, it would be awesome if people who are like 2 years old now eventually want to start playing the game on GEMP or GEMP and all that. I don't really know which one to say, but I tend to think that the core of the people that are going to be interested in this game are the people who were interested in it when it came out. So yeah, I think that absolutely it's taking over for a lot of collectors and players, the online play is, but I don't see cards totally going away, just in the sense that a lot of people physically like shuffling through decks. It's kind of like some people like a Kindle, but a lot of people like the physical feel of a book in their hand. There's something about a book relative to Kindle that I think is kind of analogous.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get into the Star Wars Blitz questions. So I'm going to ask you some quick questions on your general opinions of Star Wars, all things Star Wars. So my first question is, what is your all-time favorite Star Wars movie and why?
So I would have to say it's actually okay. I think episode 3 is probably the best movie in terms of story. Just, how Anakin fell to the dark side. Somebody trying to do the right thing ends up doing horrible things was really compelling for me. But I was 9 years old when episode 1 came out. Star Wars Episode 1 Racer was my first ever video game. So Anakin was 9 in the movie. Yeah, it was a good game. I still got it around here somewhere. But I think it was just, being the same age as Anakin when the movie came out, going to see that in the theaters and playing a lot of those games. Some of those are still my favorite games as well. But yeah, episode 1 is probably the fondest memory for me.
Good reason. Who's your favorite Jedi, and what qualities make them stand out for you?
I would say Qui-Gon. I actually designed a Qui-Gon that came out in a recent virtual set. So I would say it's the fact that he tries to do the right thing, even if it isn't what he thinks is right, even if it's always not up to the Jedi code, and conscience over just following the rules because they're the rules.
Okay. What lightsaber color would you choose for yourself, and why?
I played a lot of Dark Forces 2 Jedi Knight, so that really expanded the colors. But man, I think when I played Jedi Academy, when you got to really choose your own lightsaber color, I like Dark Forces 4. I always chose orange. Orange has been my favorite color. I don't really know why, but I usually chose characters who looked good with an orange lightsaber. So
say no more. Orange, my favorite color too.
Okay.
What is your favorite starship in the Star Wars universe, and what appeals to you about it?
It's fun. I mean, all these questions go back to Star Wars video games, but because I'm thinking of X-Wing Alliance now, or other games in the X-Wing series, or even Rogue Squadron. But I just remember, this was not in X-Wing Alliance, but I like the Naboo Starfighter. Looks kind of cool. Really fast. I guess the stats of it's fast. It has a high rate of fire, 10 proton torpedoes in Rogue Squadron. I don't know. And the fondness of Episode 1, I think just the N1 Starfighter there. And I don't really like yellow. Like, I hate seeing yellow. Like, I wouldn't want a yellow car, but the N1 just looks great. So
then you must be a big fan of the Mandalorians.
Well, I mean, I thought that was kind of cool to bring it back. But yeah, I mean, it was cool to bring it back, but then he kind of, I don't know heavily modified. I mean, it was, I like the sound effects, but maybe we'll get into this later, but I'm just getting kind of bored with a lot of the newer stuff. I don't hate it. I have no ill will. I just don't care anymore.
We'll save it.
Okay.
If you could have any force power, which one would you choose and how would you use it?
Okay. Ooh. I mean, the real basic one, I always thought in those Jedi Knight games, Force Speed was just so useful. And I play a lot of pickleball. So, I play a lot of pickleball. So being able to, go at 4 times speed, I mean, I think I'd be unbeatable. So
you'll be like, whoa, freaking out watching you do that. Which Star Wars planet would you most like to visit, and what draws you to that particular location?
Well, okay, I would have to say Tatooine. Going back to a video game, Knights of the Old Republic, the original Knights of the Old Republic. Just all the quests on that planet. I think Tuskens are cool. I play a lot of Star Wars Galactic Battlegrounds, the original RTS, and I always made Tusken Raider oriented scenarios. So all the culture on Tatooine, the Skywalker stuff is cool, but that's not really why I like it. I think just there's always cool stuff going on Tatooine, and part of that is because Tatooine's the main planet, and then they put the cool stuff there. But it's kind of a chicken and the egg thing, I guess, if that makes any sense.
Okay, who's your favorite Star Wars villain, and what makes them such a compelling character?
Okay, probably Dooku. Just in terms of, he not until that new Star Wars animated series did you really see how, I can't remember what that's called, where I think it was Tales of the Jedi, maybe, where you kind of see how he turns the dark side. But I do remember in episode 2, and I guess he was lying at the time, but it was just interesting to me how, you always wondered if he wasn't just totally evil. Like Palpatine is obviously just comically evil, but it's always seemed like Dooku was trying to, he saw something wrong and wanted to do something about it and fell to the dark side because of that. Or I just think he's more conflicted than some of the comically evil villains, or Darth Maul, who's just like a killer. He's cool to watch, but he's not like an interesting, he wouldn't be an interesting person to talk to.
Okay. What droid from the Star Wars saga do you find the most endearing, and why?
R2-D2. That one's just in terms of, some of the best dogs I've had. He reminds me just, the loyalty, and he's got a bit of an attitude too, but just, always, doing crazy things to save the day. And he's funny, and you never know what he's saying, but you kind of know what he's saying. It's just a cool character.
Okay. What is your favorite lightsaber duel in the entire Star Wars franchise, and what makes it special to you?
Okay. Duel of the Fates in episode 1. I would have to say maybe Revenge of the Sith would have been cooler, the Anakin Obi-Wan one, but the fact that they both have blue lightsabers makes it a little bit hard for me to tell what's going on. But the Duel of the Fates, you got the 3 different colors, what everyone else is doing. Super acrobatic, really interesting. Qui-Gon's in it, so one of my favorite characters. And I do remember the part after Qui-Gon has been stabbed and Obi-Wan blocks one of Darth Maul's strikes behind his head. I remember thinking that was the coolest thing I had ever seen at the time. So
that is cool. That was cool. Just the scale of it, right? So intense. If you were to join either the Rebel Alliance or Galactic Empire, which side would you choose and why?
Mm. Um, well, I mean, if we're just talking about who has cooler stuff, I mean, the Alliance fighters were always more fun to fly in all the games. But yeah, I think it's. I mean, it's hard to join the Empire when they're blowing up entire planets from a philosophical perspective. But Star Destroyers are pretty cool. So I don't know if I was gonna be on a capital ship, I'd join the Empire. If they were gonna put me in a fighter, I'd join the Alliance.
Okay. Who's your favorite non-human character in Star Wars, and what about them resonates with you? So that could be
Okay.
alien or droid, I guess.
Okay.
Just
That's
thinking more alien,
interesting.
but
Yeah, yeah. It seems like all the ones that have almost all the ones that have lines were humans. I've never really thought about that. Um, well, I'd probably have to think of somebody on that episode, the prequel Jedi Council, and you think about all of them. They kind of wrote, at least in the Legends, they kind of wrote different powers for them, and
right. Who's
yeah.
that guy with the like balloon head? He's like sitting on the council, and you just watch his head like ballooning around.
Oh, he's got like a really long neck. Super neck, yeah. I think Uriel Poof is his name, yeah. And it's weird because when you buy those or look at those encyclopedia type books, you see that they're like these giant snakes, and one of the guys is a giant snake. I can't remember what his name is, but yeah, gosh, I don't even know how to answer that just because, yeah, I don't. I don't. Actually, this is kind of weird, but in the game Star Wars Galactic Battlegrounds, there's a Chiss general. They kind of modeled her after Thrawn, I guess, but she's a separatist general. Severance Tan is her name, and
Okay.
yeah, so she's in the Star Wars miniatures game. They made a virtual version of her where she's like a commander of all these vehicles that used to be really. So if you don't know Star Wars miniatures, this might not make any sense, but they made a really cool version of her based on the video game where she boosts all of these like Confederacy tanks and Hailfire droids, all these formerly useless pieces. She made them pretty good. So that's kind of an odd reason, but it's like, this is a cool character. And the campaign that she's the main character in was fun. And yeah, she's kind of, the Palpatine level of comic villain, but at the same time, she's kind of cool and just a really cunning general.
Very unique answer. Okay. So what is your favorite line or quote from Star Wars films, and why does it resonate with you? And I'll include like a short dialogue section if you don't have it.
Okay. Wow. Man, I don't know. I honestly don't know if I can answer that one.
Maybe a change of dialogue.
Okay. That's interesting. I think just probably in episode. So this is way bigger than a range of dialogue, but in episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, just kind of how you see Palpatine really like twist words and get in Anakin's head and just kind of push him over the edge with all the things he does. Those scenes when they're in the in his office before and after Mace Windu and friends go in there and get shanked. That stuff was, yeah, just really, really creepy. And it's like, wow, this could happen to anybody, if you have somebody that twisted, so just a really interesting exchange. I think they did a good job. Sometimes Lucas's dialogue is kind of cringy, even though I like the sentiment behind it, but all that I thought was really good.
He's like, only through me can you achieve a power greater
than me. Right.
Like, that's definitely like, yes. So cool. Yeah, that would probably be one of my favorites when he's like telling you the story or when he's going through that, like,
right. Yeah, that Plagius story is a bit of a meme now. I mean, I have, so I'm a teacher and I have some kids who know they can recite the whole thing and from memory. It's kind of funny to watch, but yeah, but when you get underneath the memes and how funny it actually kind of is, yeah, it's good stuff.
If you could have a mentor from the Star Wars universe, who would you choose and what wisdom would you seek from them?
I think it goes back to Qui-Gon in terms of the, he is, I mean, I think he does support what the Jedi, what the spirit of the Jedi Code is, but he's not totally wedded to the letter of it all the time. So yeah, trying to do the right thing, even if no one else agrees. That's kind of resonated with me from his perspective.
Okay. What is your favorite Star Wars spin-off or standalone film from the Disney era and why?
Okay. So when you say spin-off, does that are we just talking about movies now, or like TV shows too, or
So Disney era could be a movie, could be a series, could be like shorts, something like the
okay.
Tales of the Jedi kind of stuff. I don't know what you call that. I guess an
Yeah, I
anthology.
see. Okay. Yeah, it was kind of cool to see. I guess it might be Tales of the Jedi. I mean, I thought Andor was just good like TV, but whether or not that was super Star Warsy or not really wasn't the point of that, I thought. But in terms of fleshing out Star Wars more, I thought Tales of the Jedi was pretty good. And seeing how Dooku, he wasn't fully committed to serving Palpatine until he felt it was too late, similar to Anakin. So the foreshadowing of that, I just think that gave a lot of pretty interesting background that I don't think we really had back before Disney took it over.
Okay. Which Star Wars species or alien race do you find the most fascinating and why?
Okay. So I didn't play much of the RPG, but my brother's really into that. So I'm always asking him, okay, well, what bonuses to charisma or dexterity or constitution does this species get? And I won't be able to remember why exactly, but I always thought Ki-Adi-Mundi's species, Saurians, I think it's called, in terms of, the pros and cons that they had within the RPG. And I guess a lot of these questions I'm asking from the perspective of game mechanics, yeah, I think that was just the kind of the stuff you had to deal with, if you wanted to be like a Jedi Consular, that would be a good species. But if you wanted to be a Jedi Guardian and, be more battle focused, that'd be difficult because they're, they have a lot of pros and cons. So from that perspective,
Yeah,
I always thought they were interesting.
I think Ki-Adi-Mundi, he was allowed to have wives. Didn't he have like 4 wives or something?
Oh yeah,
Because
yeah,
he's
yeah.
or going extinct or something, so he was allowed to.
Right, yeah. So they have that different cultural stuff there, and you got to wonder if the Jedi had allowed that for Anakin, maybe he wouldn't have, been so easily drawn into that web of
Yeah,
lies
is
by
that
Palpatine.
not being married or not having attachments more of a Jedi thing, or more of just the Jedi restraint,
Right,
like structure they built for themselves?
absolutely.
Um, kind of leaning towards that. It sounds like, oh yeah, you can have a wife. It's totally cool. And Anakin would be like, all right, cool. I'll be on the council.
That is
And then
funny
like
because
galaxy
Ki-Adi-Mundi's. I missed that last part. What?
galaxy saved. Now he
Oh
has
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
What's your favorite lightsaber design or hilt style, and what attracts you to that design?
Oh, well, so going back to yet another video game for the 10th time, I would
No, the
say
video
that.
games are deep, man. I don't mind it at all because
Yeah,
for those
I
who
just
played it,
I'm not like concerned about everything. It's just funny to me how like that's really, I guess I'm realizing in this interview more than the most of the films that yeah, the video games are like where putting myself in the Star Wars universe. That's what I really that's what really draws me to it. I guess that's what really is memorable to me. So, but
well, it was like, especially the games like you were referring to, was coming out at a time when we were deprived of Star Wars, right? So playing Racer, playing Rogue Squadron, Rebel Assault 2, like all these games, TIE Fighter, all these games were like Empire at War, like everything,
yeah,
there's tons of them, right? But like all these games like expanded our understanding and world. And while we weren't getting TV shows and stuff like that, so like
right.
that was filling that void, right? And now we're getting more of it, right? With like Jedi Outcast and some other things with like full on blown stories and worlds,
Yeah.
which is amazing, to see, to expand that. So I'm all about it. I mean, I would probably understand a lot of references, probably not all of them, but a good amount of them. So I totally get it.
Yeah.
But go ahead, tell us about your hilt style favorite.
Yeah. So in Jedi Academy, I believe it was called the Arbiter. They had that like 10 different hilts, and it's basically the same as Anakin's second lightsaber. So the one that Luke inherits, it's pretty similar to that. But I also do like the curve of Dooku's hilt. I don't know why it's like that, but the lightsaber styles are pretty interesting. How there used to be like 7 forms, as far as I know, and I do wonder if Dooku being basically just a straight up duelist, his style wasn't so much about blaster bolts. It was just taking on as many sword wielders as you could. So it's probably a tie between those two, and maybe just because it's Dooku's, it appealed to me.
Okay. If you were hired to act in the next Star Wars movie or show, what would you want your character to be like?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to sound bitter, but I'd want to be out of there in a day or two. I mean, I feel like there's things that I'd rather do than get involved in. Bitter's not the right word. I just, I don't know. I thought it was kind of funny how Daniel Craig was a stormtrooper. No, I didn't know it was him until years later. So, yeah, I don't know.
So like a cameo extra, like just somebody in the background.
Yeah. I don't care. Yeah, I mean, I've never. I don't think I've ever said, "Oh wow, this was a waste of my time to watch this." But at the same time, yeah, it's just nice entertainment. I like Star Wars: The Next Generation now more than I like, or Star Trek: The Next Generation more than I like most Star Wars. So I don't know. That might not be a good answer.
Okay. Who is your least favorite Star Wars character, and what specifically don't you like about them?
Okay. Least favorite. Well, I don't know if there's, honestly, it's probably Rose Tico. I just that line about now it was worth it when they totally failed their mission, but they were able to release a space cow. I was just like, I don't know. I can't get on board with this. I just thought it was so dumb. And then, Finn, they kind of ruined Finn in that movie. They turned him into, like, he was squirting water from his back to tank or whatever. And then he had a chance to, be a hero. And I was, when people sacrifice themselves in movies, that's always, something that's meaningful for me. But then she comes in a really weird looking shot. It was almost kind of comic, I thought. And she swoops in with her speeder and saves the day, apparently, and levels. I don't know. I just thought it was so corny. And that was the second time I watched The Last Jedi, I'm like, this is okay. But the first time I was kind of aghast at a lot of the stuff I saw.
Yeah, it's a little cringy, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an okay movie. Once you know the 5 or 6 things that are really bad that are coming, you can just ignore those and enjoy it because it's still Star Wars and there's still some good stuff at the core.
I think I just had a hard time with Rose, like believing Rose Tico to be in this sort of like heroish role, right? I'm not saying like people aren't heroes and have different builds or types, right? But like it, like if you're gonna go see like an action related sort of movie, right? You kind of expect people to be in like action ready shape, right? Like we're supposed to believe she's like a soldier, like a rebel, and like, and then they see them towards the end, and like even in Last Jedi, they're like running around and like shooting and doing all this stuff. It's like,
yeah,
do I really like believe this? Like, do I buy this? And it's just like, I don't know. Her character was just like, what? Like,
yeah, it wasn't so much for me. I mean, anybody can be a soldier if they need to. It was just like after she did stuff and you would hear her rationale for it, I just could not. I thought her values, like the values they wrote for her character, were just so dumb, and that's what really bothered me about her. It's I don't know. I read a lot of World War II history, and the people who fought as partisans against the Nazis, you had basically school children sometimes doing that. So it's not like the fact that she was a young person who doesn't look like Rambo. I'm not saying that's what you're saying, but that didn't bother me. It was just that's why you did that. You thought that this mission was worth it because you freed an animal when all of your friends are now probably going to die. And okay, I was shocked when I heard that line.
All right, what is your favorite bounty hunter in the Star Wars galaxy, and what qualities make them stand out for you?
Okay. So I really liked all those Tales from Jabba's Palace type books and those short stories. And right. I just thought Dengar was pretty interesting. He went from just being like a swoop jockey to a bitter guy who wanted to kill Han Solo at any cost. And then he eventually, started, I think he fell in love with somebody and then started helping out Boba Fett, and just he was all over the place. So he just had a very um, sprawling set of things that he went through and did. So I think he's interesting. And then I do remember the fact that he has a blaster in the Star Wars CCG, and I like to play the card that lets you ping for 1 damage when you have a blaster. And he's only one of the only bounty hunters other than Boba Fett, I think, whose weapon is actually a blaster. So I remember trying to put him at a site and ping for damage. So in the card game, I kind of like him too.
Okay. Yeah, I remember the reading about those stories of Dengar and stuff. It's such a like richer background. Like when you hear about like how he's like really bitter against Han Solo, it gives him better like, I don't know, rationale for why he's there. Because in the movie, he's just standing there. It says nothing.
Yeah, you can see him for 10 seconds, right?
Yeah, exactly. Which Star Wars moment has the most emotional impact on you, and why?
I'm a bit conflicted on this one, just because I think this is another instance where Lucas, I assume he wrote the dialogue, and I kind of, I actually, in my German class, we watch Revenge of the Sith pretty much the end of every year because of the exam schedule, and we have some extra time. But when Padme comes to Mustafar, and she doesn't know Obi-Wan's on board, so she's totally taken by surprise, and then Anakin just force chokes her. And I guess I should go back to why I'm conflicted about it, but the line "You're breaking my heart," like I know what she means, and I think that's a really good sentiment, but it just seems a little bit unrealistic to me. But yeah, when Anakin is so consumed by the dark side that even Padme he tries to murder her, that's pretty impactful. I don't remember what the question was, but I think that answers it.
Yeah, no, that answers it. Who's your favorite Rebel Alliance member, and what inspires you about their dedication to the cause?
Okay. And a lot of this is so these are maybe from books that I read, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, but just going off the wall a bit, Yan Dodonna, General Dodonna, in terms of, he got captured and was held in a prison on Coruscant for a long time, and something to do with Cornhorn freeing him, and just vaguely from my recollections of how all that went down, and the fact that he was a prisoner for a long time but still was trying to help out I could be totally misremembering this, but and in some of the games he has an important role to, most of the real-time strategy games. So just his total commitment to his cause, and sacrificing himself to I think in one of the games he blows himself up with a bunch of troopers inside the temple, the Yavin temples. Interesting stuff there from him, I think.
Wow, some deep stuff. So which Star Wars species or alien race would you want as your loyal companion, and why?
Okay. Well, when I think of loyal companion, I think of R2-D2. But I don't know. I don't hate the Gungans. Like I thought Jar Jar was, some of it, like the toilet humor jokes for him were kind of silly. But I don't know. I thought Jar Jar was an interesting sidekick. And in the miniatures game, he has an ability where if you target him, you roll a 20-sided die, and if you roll an 11 or higher, that targeting automatically goes to an enemy. So he's just a total chaos machine. And I think that's so it's a lot of fun. Gungans are a lot of fun in a lot of the games that I play. So I do like the Gungans.
Well, Jar Jar was like secretly like force sensitive, right? He just doesn't know it. He's so goofy. Like the force
who knows how that goes? That's funny though. Yeah, he's just a
like,
total.
It's just like but it works the chaos like somewhere else.
Yeah, he had a higher kill total of droids than anybody else in that battle, and it was mostly just tripping over himself. So I don't know. It's pretty cool.
What is your most prized Star Wars collectible?
Okay. Well, I would say so. My buddy Sean and I, we went to summer camp together. I mentioned him a lot of my videos. I think I still have. We traded a concussion grenade back and forth a bunch of times, but there's a Darth Vader. I remember I went to a Wizards of the Coast store back when they had those, and I bought a Luke Skywalker Advanced Premiere pack, those like triangular ones. And in one of the packs, I got a Darth Vader that was slightly miscut, and so I know which one it is, and I still have it, and I keep it separate. That's not Yeah, that's something that that'd probably be the last Star Wars card I keep. If I said, hey, you have to sell everything today but one card, I'd keep that one.
Okay. What's your biggest regret from your collecting journey? Wish I didn't do this. Wish I did this.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. I a lot of people say, man, I wish I would have bought, Reflections 3 boxes when they were, right after the game went out of print, but I had no money, so I can't really regret that. There was, I was in middle school when the game went out of print. I think I'm probably younger than a lot of the guys who are pretty active in the game.
Keep in mind, eBay was not as like savvy as it is now.
Yeah, it's true.
The technology wasn't the same.
Mm-hmm.
Like the breadth of catalog of items is not what it is now.
Right.
So I think people forget about that. It's not as like quite the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think it's not like there's anything I really, sold that's like one of a kind that I wish I would have kept. I had some pretty cool Endor miscuts where it was like 3/4 Leia, 3/4 Daughter of Skywalker, and 1/4 3PO from Endor, like a super miscut. That was cool, but I don't know. I feel like nowadays I'm pretty careful when I buy stuff. My uncle always told me never sell or trade anything you don't have a double of, and I think that served me pretty well.
Okay. If you could have any one collectible item from Star Wars, what would it be? It could literally be anything.
Oh, okay. That's a great question. It's probably something to do with one of my favorite characters. I mean, one of the Qui-Gon lightsaber prop would be pretty cool, or one of the R2-D2 suits that Kenny Baker was in. That'd be pretty awesome to have. Yeah, I don't know. Those are probably those two. Just having somebody comes over to my place and that's a pretty cool R2-D2 replica you got there, and I say replica. That'd be a fun conversation.
Or just like an original Darth Vader, like
yeah,
cool, like mannequin. Be like, no, that was actually in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
You're like, what? No, I think one of the this reminds me of like one of the stories. I think what would actually be interesting, like more recently, is I heard a story about Paul Blake, who played Greedo. So when he finished filming, he wanted to keep the gun he had that he'd used to shoot. So he brought it home, and he was like, oh, this is kind of cool. The kids will like this. So he gave it to his kids, and they used it to, play toy gun and space stuff, and did it, played with it for a few years. And then after a while, it got kind of gunked up, and he threw it in the garbage.
Yeah.
And he did. And then like years later, of course, it was like, why did I do that? He's like, this would have been a fortune, for people wanting original props. Imagine somebody being like, I went through the garbage and I have, Greedo's original blast. That would be like a crazy story,
For sure.
That's like one of those collecting myth sort of legend things that is really valuable.
It's like guys who put baseball cards back in the spokes of their bikes in the 60s, and it's, these are Mickey Mantles that are worth hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars nowadays. And my dad has a collection of 50s cards where there's pinholes in every card because guy put them up on cardboard, and stuff like that.
God, no, that's the same story with currency too. They used to like pin through them and like thread them to hang them up. It's like really obscure stuff. It's like, no, why did you do that? Well, this has been awesome.
Absolutely.
So you still have your YouTube channel. So for those who don't know, Eric rips open and shares his knowledge of not only the pack rips, but also with playing the game, deep knowledge there. So definitely check out his YouTube channel if you have not. Eric, thanks for joining. This was awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, a lot of fun. Thanks for having me on. Good trip down memory lane.